All right. Hey guys, how's it going? It's me. It is late. It is 1:17 in the morning. I just wanted to say hello before I called it a night. Give you guys an update on my thoughts, what I've been looking at, and just get you caught up on everything. This is a interesting simulator that I came across. It's the Corona simulator uh, by the Washington Post. So if you Google Washington Post Corona simulator, you'll find this page. Um, I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought I would share it with you guys. Let's see what happens when they're calling it simulitis, which is just a simulitis. Get it? It's a fake name. So pretend disease. Let's see what happens when this simulated disease spreads in a town of 200 people. We will start with everyone in town at a random position, moving at a random angle, and we will make one person sick. Notice how the slope of the red curve, which represents the number of sick people, rises rapidly as the disease spreads and then tapers off as people recover. So we'll click here to run the simulation, and you'll see one person starting off sick and infecting others. So when everybody's moving around, that one person bumps into everybody, gets everybody sick, and slowly people recover. You'll see that it says our simulation town is small, about the size of Whittier, Alaska. So simulitis was able to spread quickly across the entire population. In a country like the United States, with its 330 million people, the curve could steepen for a long time before it started to slow, right? Because there's so many people, the infection rate just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. So that's what it looks like when everybody's roaming around free. When it comes to the real COVID-19, we would prefer to slow the spread of the virus before it infects a large portion of the U.S. population. To slow things down, let's create a forced quarantine, which are these two lines, such as the one the Chinese government imposed on the Hubei province, COVID-19's ground zero. So you'll see here the forced quarantine bars. So we'll start here, and it does say right here, when you see this start to run, it'll be, the bars will go all the way across, and then whoops, as health experts would expect, it proved impossible to completely seal off the sick population from the healthy. So you'll see that this quarantined area opens up and begins to infect the non-quarantined area. So here, we'll run it. So the sick people affect each other in the quarantined area, and some people, break out of that area. They begin to infect others. Liana Wen, the former health commissioner for the city of Baltimore, explained the impracticalities of forced quarantines to the Washington Post. Many people work in the city and live in neighboring counties and vice versa. Would people be separated from their families? How would every road be blocked? How would supplies reach residents? Somebody else says the truth is those kinds of lockdowns are very rare and never effective. Fortunately, there are other ways to slow an outbreak. Above all, health officials have encouraged people to avoid public gatherings, to stay home more often, and to keep their distance from others. If people are less mobile and interact with each other less, the virus has fewer opportunities to spread. Some people will still go out. Maybe they cannot stay home because of their work or other obligations, or maybe they simply refuse to heed public health warnings. Those people are not only more likely to get sick themselves, they are most likely to spread the disease too. Let's see what happens when a quarter of our population continues to move around while the other three quarters adopt a strategy of what health experts call social distancing. So we'll run this simulation. This is one quarter moving around and three quarters maintaining their distance. This is completely randomized, by the way. Every time you run the simulation, it is randomized. It's statistically, the outcome is statistically probable, but the simulation is unique each time that you run it. So I mean, you can see that that's three quarters of the people distancing themselves. That's a way flatter curve than we saw, here. I thought that was pretty fascinating. More social distancing keeps even more people healthy, and people can be nudged away from public places by removing their allure. We control the desire to be in public places by closing down public spaces. Italy is closing all of its restaurants, China is closing everything, and we are closing things now too, said Drew Harris, a population health researcher and assistant professor at the Thomas Jefferson University College of Public Health. Reducing the opportunities for gathering help folks social distance. To simulate more social distancing, instead of allowing a quarter of the population to move, we will see what happens when we just let one of every 8 people move. Hey, nobody's going to get sick here anymore because they're all the 4 that are. That's fascinating. I've never seen that happen in that simulation before. This is what it usually looks like. A lot slower. That previous scenario, it actually stopped the spread. The 4 simulations you just watched, a free-for-all, an attempted quarantine, moderate social distancing, and extensive social distancing, were random. That means the results of each one were unique to your reading of this article. If you scroll up and rerun the simulations, or if you visit this page later, your results will change. Even with different results, moderate social distancing will usually outperform the attempted quarantine, and extensive social distancing usually works best of all. Below is a comparison of your results. So this is just a disclaimer. Simulitis is not COVID-19, and the simulations are oversimplifications, but they're representative of the logic behind this social distancing that everybody is talking about. And it's impossible, honestly, to dispute logic based in statistical analysis. I found this page very, very interesting. As a quick aside, we're going to talk to the mayor again tomorrow, and also talking to the folks down at the Department of Labor, trying to figure out what the appropriate thing to do is with regards to keeping drinkers open or not. Apparently, if we elect to close before they mandate closing, it could compromise our staff's ability to get benefits. So we're trying to gain additional clarity on that. But we implemented a very proactively implemented a regimen for sanitation. We proactively implemented limits on our guest count so that folks visiting could maintain social distancing. But it just doesn't feel like I don't think that we can. I don't think that I can keep Grinkers open and not look bad. So, there's. I guess the primary reason to close Grinkers is for health purposes. But there's also a secondary concern there, which is you want to make sure that again because Grinkers is my place, and I'm associated with Grinkers. If Grinkers does anything bad, it also reflects negatively on the Tova. So that's how this ties back to you guys. And so there's a concern that even though we're making proactive efforts to be responsible, ultimately at some point it's just bad PR and bad. Excuse me. There's public relations and goodwill in the community. Goodwill in the community. These are very real considerations, and so strongly leaning towards closing down. Want to make sure that what we do and how we do it, though, does not negatively affect our people, because they are real people and they have bills to pay too. So. Working carefully, making careful decisions, trying to be thoughtful and careful. This is a Dr. Shiva, who's a MIT PhD guy, and he's just talking about how the coronavirus works, and he had some interesting thoughts on, I don't know, not prevention, but just, well, it's interesting. I'll let you guys listen to him speak. Sorry, let me start over there.
Happens when viral infection takes place. So imagine this is a cell, a big bubble. A virus is like a small bubble. And what the virus tries to do is it tries to invade that cell. Now, in the case of the coronavirus, or the viruses like the coronavirus, like SARS or MERS, the virus, the outside of the virus particle has glycoproteins. It has a sheet. Inside of it is what's called messenger RNA or RNA or single-stranded RNA, okay? To be specific, RNA. So a virus is literally this small bubble. Inside of it is RNA, nucleic acids. Now, what's going on here is a small bubble, which is a virus, is trying to get into the big bubble, which is your cell. And that process is mediated by a number of methods. So if your body has, if its immune system and it has the right nutrition and your immune system's working properly, that virus will essentially bounce off, and we'll talk about that. However, in the case of the coronavirus, it's a variation of the SARS virus. The outer surface of the protein of that virus has the ability to interact with the receptor. People believe it's the ACE2 receptor, and that ACE2 receptor is the one that's involved in shrinking your vessels, because that ACE2 receptor actually creates an enzyme which converts a particular protein to another protein form, which actually constricts your vessels. But the bottom line is a coronavirus actually, it is believed, lands on that same receptor, and then through that receptor, through a channel, the RNA particles go into the cell. Now, when they go into the cell, so virus lands, and it has an ability, small virus lands on the big bubble, which is your cell, and then the virus injects its nucleic acids into the cell. Those nucleic acids have an intelligence to take over your cellular machinery and essentially create more viruses, which essentially continue this process of virus replication. So the most important thing here that we need to understand is that there's all this fear being spread about the coronavirus. First of all, we need to understand that 80%, 90% of the people get it. It's a mild reaction, it's a flu. The people who are dying from this, most of them are people who had some type of pre-existing condition or their immune systems were compromised. So this is a critical thing that we should talk about. How do you boost your immune health? So that's what I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about vitamins A, vitamins D, and vitamin C. Now, vitamin A is essentially a layering. I'm wearing the jacket here, so the cold doesn't bother me, even though it's cold out here. And vitamin A is essentially a shield which provides the keratinization. I'm not going to get too deeply into it, but it provides a structural integrity of your cells. Now, if your thyroid is working well, you're taking enough carotenoids, and you have iodine, and your thyroid's working properly, your body will create vitamin A. You could also take supplemental vitamin A, and that literally shields your cell. It's like a deadbolt to shield your cells from attack of viruses. Now, if the virus does get in, now your body's going to go through the immune response, which I've talked about, your innate immune system, your interferon system, your adaptive system, the microbiome, and all these things are involved. This is called your immune reaction. Now, in the normal case, your immune system reacts and it modulates itself, and you may get some sniffles, like the mild reaction, you're fine. However, if your immune system is compromised, which means it's weakened by all sorts of things, exogenous things, and what's going to happen is your body's going to overreact. This is called a cytokine storm. So it's not the virus that's hurting you, but it's the reaction of your immune system, which has been compromised. This is where vitamin D and vitamin C are extremely important, and other things like catechins, things that come from substances like green tea. And there's a whole host of things which we'll talk about that enable your immune system not to have this overreaction. So that's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to focus on is let's start talking about immune health. Viruses come and go. There's trillions of viruses in our body, trillions of microbiome. And it's not like everyone's dying. Even in Wuhan, 11 million people got, 11 million people in the population. Let's say all 80,000 you attribute to Wuhan. It's a very small percentage of people who are infected, and even a smaller percentage of people who've died. The most important thing we need to start talking about is how do we boost immune health? So you politicians listening out there, that comes through clean water, clean food, and good nutrition. But they don't want to talk about that. What politicians want to talk about, they want to scare us. And what they really want to do, in my view, this entire coronavirus is a wonderful opportunity for China to shun dissent. We don't hear anything from Hong Kong. We don't talk about the fact that Wuhan was having massive protests. And here in the United States, there is a growing movement against everyone being forced to take vaccines. So things like the coronavirus need to be put into context. We need to talk about immune health. It's getting really cold out here, but let's focus on immune health and let's stop scaring people. Let's build up our immune system, clean water, clean air, clean food, and nutrition. That's what we need to focus on. By the way, Be Well, Shiva for Senate. Again, if you can look at it, our volunteers are collecting signatures here. Be the light. Thank you.
So I don't know to what extent that gentleman is, crazy, or, if he's brilliant, or some combination of the two. He's an MIT grad, he's a PhD. I was researching how coronavirus works, and he was right about how, I guess there's a big cell and the virus comes in, it's a smaller cell, and it attaches to the big cell, and the big cell thinks it's a normal good thing, and so the cell opens up and says, oh, you're a good thing, yeah, give me what you got, and then the virus infects the cell. And so what he was talking about making the cell stronger and boosting the immune system, those things just seemed logical to me. I'm not sure to the extent that they're true or not, but I figured I would share that with you guys and let you make your own decisions. Let's see. New York Post article. I thought this was a little bit optimistic, so I thought I would share it with you guys. It's an opinion article, first of all. Coronavirus is going to hit its peak and start falling sooner than you think. Nations are closing borders, stocks are plummeting, and a New York Times headline reads, "The coronavirus has put the world's economy in survival mode." Both political parties have realized the crisis could severely impact the November elections. The House, the Senate, the presidency, and Sacre Bleu, they've even shuttered the Louvre. Some of these reactions are understandable, much of it pure hysteria. Meanwhile, the spread of the virus continues to slow. More than 18,000... Now, I'm not sure if that's true or not. It might have been true for the moment. I'm not sure if it's true now, but let's continue. More than 18,000 Americans have died from this season's generic flu so far, according to the latest data from the CDC. In 2018, the CDC estimated there were 80,000 flu deaths. That's against 19 coronavirus deaths so far, from about 470 cases. Worldwide, there have been 3,400 coronavirus deaths out of about 100,000 cases. Flu, by comparison, reaps about 291 to 646,000 annually. That's a lot of people. It makes you think about how many people there really are on the planet. China is the origin of the virus and accounts for 80% of cases and deaths, but its cases peaked and began declining more than a month ago. That is true. And that part, unless China's data is faked, this part gives me the most optimism out of everything. The fact, and I read yesterday or the day before that China is sending its people back to work. So it'll be interesting to see if there's an uptick again now that they're putting people back to work. So I think it's worthwhile to watch that in the days and weeks ahead. Fewer than 200 new cases are reported daily, down from a peak of 4,000. Subsequent countries will follow the same pattern in what's called Farr's Law, first formulated in 1840 and ignored in every epidemic hysteria since. The laws state that epidemics tend to rise and fall in roughly symmetrical pattern or bell-shaped curve. In a roughly symmetrical pattern or bell-shaped curve, which we've seen. That bell-shaped curve is what we're trying to flatten, right? AIDS, SARS, Ebola, they all followed that pattern. So does seasonal flu each year. Clearly, flu is vastly more contagious than coronavirus. Consider the first known coronavirus cases date back to December, and since then the virus has afflicted fewer people in total than the flu does in a few days. And again, I'm not sure about this paragraph. And why are there no flu quarantines? Because it's so contagious, it would be impossible. As for death rates, look at death rates versus cases, because those are reported cases, both flu and with coronavirus. Great majority of those infected have symptoms so mild, if any, they don't seek medical attention and don't get counted in the caseload. That does make sense to me. If you're calculating death rate, which is a ratio of sick people to death rate, but you're not counting all the sick people, it's going to throw off the ratio. Those calculating rates ignore the importance of good health care. Given that the vast majority of cases have occurred in a country with poor health care, China, that's going to dramatically exaggerate the death rate. Also true, but then that takes back into account the availability of hospital beds, right? So it's true the United States does have better health care, therefore the survival rate will be a lot larger, presuming that everybody can get that care. Again, a valid argument for flattening the curve there. The rate also varies tremendously according to age, which we knew. 0.2% for below 40 but almost 15% for above 80. That's crazy. Atova agents that are, if you are 60 plus, 65 plus, be careful. I mean, 15%, that's disgusting. So what is it for people that are 70? Is it 12%, 11%, 10%? I mean, I don't want a 1 in 10 chance of not making it. So if you're an Atova agent and you fall into that older category, please do me a favor. And even if everybody's wrong, everybody's wrong, and it's a total, it's a fabrication. Even if you feel like it's all ridiculous, it's just not worth the risk, right? So stay home. If you need something, if you need food, you need groceries, you need medicine, give me a call. There's 80 agents at Atova that would be more than happy to help you out. So do us all a favor, please. Please. Err on the side of caution. Stay at home. Let us help you out. Please. It's just not worth the risk. No, you don't know for sure, right? Don't know for sure. So why risk it? That's my bottom line. Like the flu, the coronavirus is attacking high risk groups, the elderly, underlying health conditions. And here's the part that I really liked, and that this is the thing I really think is correct and important. More good news this month. The Northern Hemisphere, which includes the countries with the most cases, starts heating up. Almost all respiratory viruses hate warm and moist weather. That's why flu dies out in America every year by May at the latest, and probably why Latin America has reported only 25 coronavirus cases. The Philippines, where the writer lives, has about a third of the U.S. population, but it's so hot and humid, they have no confirmed cases of internal transmission, meaning their only cases are for people that had traveled outside of the country. So I think this is the most important part of the entire article, which talks about the season. Spring and summer are ahead of us, and every year by May, that's why the flu dies out in America every year by May. And we're in March, right? So I think this would be potentially a lot worse if this had reached the United States, back in November, December. If it was starting here then, I think we'd have a longer haul. But I think, I don't know, this is a guess. But this gives me optimistic hope. All right, and then lastly, we got a little bit of Cramer. Let's listen to what Cramer has to say.
There's some good news here. We're now getting millions of testing kits, many made by last night's Guess Thermo Fisher. That's a start. We have data that shows this virus can be carried by nearly anyone, but the death rate is heavily skewed toward the elderly with pre-existing conditions. The numbers are so stark, it's easy to see why Dr. Fauci's more worried about young people who think they're invincible getting infected and then giving it to their much more at-risk older relatives. If we ring-fence the elderly so that they don't come in contact with anyone under 40, that could make a huge difference. Then, my favorite, because it is still mad money, the ingenuity factor. Tonight we're hearing from Regeneron, which is having some success, maybe a lot of success, with an anti-inflammatory drug that suppresses some of the virus's most lethal symptoms. And they also have high hopes for a possible vaccine much sooner than I thought. Don't scoff. Regeneron conquered Ebola. They might have something, and have something in record time. Meanwhile, Gilead's testing one of their antivirals. We don't know enough. Who knows? But it could be good. Others are using Plaquenil, malaria drug. I think there's a possibility of success there. It's a mistake to bet against American ingenuity over the long haul. How long? Anybody's guess. But I'm not taking the other side of that trade. Finally, let's deal with the economy. I'm beginning to be heartened by some of the moves from the private sector, not just the public. Later, we're speaking with Sheryl Sandberg. She's Facebook's chief operating officer. She's rolling out a $100 billion program to help 30,000 small businesses across over 30 countries now. Some problems, though, are so big they can only be solved by the federal government. Washington needs to step up with unemployment insurance and what Mnuchin has said would be $1 trillion in the economy. I wish that that were enough. This is a Malcolm X moment. When it comes to people who are in danger of being wiped out by something beyond their control, the government needs to help by any means necessary. Maybe that's what Leisman was getting at. Maybe that's the trick. If the Fed just guarantees pretty much everything, we're back to 2007, 2008, but more terra firma. The president and the Treasury Secretary are talking about business interruption insurance. I'm counting on that insurance going to small and medium-sized businesses and to the 1099 workers, the sole proprietors who are being torn asunder by COVID, by something they didn't have anything to do with. Government's got to put money into the hands of small business owners to meet payroll. If they do, we can tide them over until the economy comes back, as long as they keep them on payroll. 1.2 trillion. I know it sounds like a lot. It's not enough. It's roughly the size of the bank problems in 2007. But this.
Interesting here. You had France's president, I believe, just did a no more suspended taxes and suspended rent payments, which I don't want to get into the philosophical or political aspects of government relief, and so I won't. But I think what our government is planning on doing, which is pretty much giving everybody free money, which is a broken thing to do, right? So I think you guys know my position on the global economy. I think the global economy is, before COVID-19, I think the global economy is unsustainable and broken, and that we're propping it up and keeping it going for as long as we can using manipulation and trickery. And if we take that as a given, if we take that as a truth, then more manipulation, more trickery in the form, in this case, of just giving people free money, is kind of absurdly appropriate. If the system is broken, then doing broken things to keep it going somehow makes sense in a weird and twisted way. But those matters aside for a moment, I think what the United States is doing with regard to giving money to people so that they can pay their rent, and giving money to small business owners so that they can meet payroll. What those things are designed to do is to keep the wheels moving. And when COVID-19 reaches its apex and new cases start to decline and an announcement is made of same, you're going to find that the recovery will begin. That's going to be a great day. We've reached maximum and things are headed in the right direction now. That's going to be a catalyst that's going to light a fire in the economy and bring it back to life. Now, in France's case, suspending rent, you suspend rent, it just means that the landlord's not getting the money now, and they can't pay their underlying mortgage, or they can't pay their people, and so it's just like pushing the problem down the line a little bit. It's not really fixing anything. Let's say that France continues to do more things like that, where they just are putting a hold on things. That path, I believe, is stopping the wheels from moving. And in that environment, when the COVID-19 begins to taper off, they're going to have to start those wheels moving again from a stopped position. Whereas in the United States, by giving money, those wheels, although falsely being greased by government money, those wheels are at least still moving, right? And so when COVID-19 begins to taper off, the wheels are already going, and as the economic recovery begins, it doesn't have to start from zero. There's already inertia. And so I think I think in the United States, as a result, we're going to see our recovery happen faster than nations that do things a little bit, adopt other strategies. So I do like this. I think that with the warmer months ahead, with the social distancing that we're doing, the fact that our government is going to keep those wheels moving, I think all these things perhaps may yield a shorter term economic impact, and that's what if I had to bet, that would be my bet at this point. If I had to bet, I'd also bet that I've been thinking more about it, and I do think that although it seems a little bit counterintuitive, I do believe that we're going to see home prices in the Boise market continue to go up. So yes, there's economic uncertainty, and the stock market is doing very poorly, and there's not a lot of business, and income is down. But I think anytime there's an illness, especially one like this, people tend to want to get out of the big cities. They want to get out of the mass populated areas, and they want to get to a place where it's less crazy. And where is it less crazy? Where is it nicer? Well, Boise. So I think we're going to see a lot of people trying to move to the Boise area. So I think we're going to see an uptick in that. And I think we're going to see people in the Boise area not wanting to move as much because they like what they've got, and they don't want to let it go. And so increased demand, potentially lower supply, that is a recipe for price appreciation. And so that's probably where I think we might see a short-term dip, but I think that in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, I think we're definitely going to see prices going up, provided that the overall real estate market holds reasonably strong, nationally. And even if it doesn't, I still think the Boise market's the values are gonna hold pretty strong here, but only time will tell. Atova is working. I'm working. We are working on a project called Atova Cares. We're going to be I'll tell you what. I'm gonna save that for probably tomorrow's video. So be sure to tune in for that, and I'll have more details on the Atova Cares initiative then. So that is all for tonight. Stay safe out there. If you guys need help with anything, please let me know, let a fellow agent know. We've all got each other's backs. And I also wanted to say that our count, I'm going to try and do our count. So we are +7 -1. We did potentially, we're still fighting for it, but we did potentially lose a deal today. We had a home under contract that was contingent on, we represented the seller. It was contingent on the buyer selling their home, which was also in escrow. Well, that deal fell, and therefore the deal here fell. And so that's the first deal that we've lost, arguably, to the COVID-19 crisis. So since last Friday, we are +7 or +8 there's still one in negotiation. So assuming we get that deal, the counter offer accepted. It might have already been accepted. I haven't spoken to that agent since this morning. So I think we're going to be +8 -1. So we're net +7 since last Friday, which is really when everything went crazy. And then I think that was it. So +8 -1. Pretty much about where we want to be. Oh, I was going to mention Val. Hi, Val, if you're listening. Sorry to call you out. I try not to call agents out individually, but I talked to Val today, and Val's, I said, hey, how's it going out there? How are you feeling about things? And she said, well, I had a listing presentation. And I might get these days a little bit mixed up, but she said, I had a listing presentation on Saturday. I showed clients property on Monday. I showed different set of buyer clients property on Tuesday. So in a 4-day period, Val's doing a listing presentation and taking 2 different buyers out on tour. So if any of you are out there thinking that the market has stopped, it has not. Things are still happening. So don't use COVID-19 as an excuse to just stop doing business. That would be a mistake. Other agents are doing that. You should redouble your efforts and take advantage of the fact that other agents have their head in the sand and get a leg up on your competition. There is one more thing I want to mention, and that was safety. So you might want to interview clients before you go meet with them. Have you traveled outside of Idaho? Are you symptomatic? Any illness in your family or your friends that you've been hanging around, right? And so do a little bit of due diligence on folks. Maybe adopt a policy of no handshakes. Engage in appropriate health etiquette. When you're working with a client, don't be embarrassed to ask them to engage in appropriate health etiquette. If you have a seller that wants to, that's concerned about people visiting their home, you can, we saw this at another listing where it was an elderly seller, and they put a questionnaire in the docs tab. Have you traveled outside of Idaho? Are you ill or experiencing any symptoms of illness? Have you been around people that have been ill or have experienced symptoms of illness? And if you answer yes to any of these questions, please don't come look at our home. You can get gloves. So if you have a seller that wants to list their home, but they're worried about people coming into their home, we do booties, right? So get some gloves. Go to Norco or even a restaurant supply store, and you get gloves and ask people to wear booties and gloves when they go in the home. And so just talk to sellers, talk to your clients, offer reassurance, talk about social distancing, talk about proper health etiquette. Those things, all make a difference. And arguably, if we're staying in groups of less than 10, then we're complying with the CDC directive, and that's good as well. So be logically safe. That's the advice that I am offering now. That's it for tonight. If you guys need anything real estate wise, or you want to talk about the economy at large, and perhaps most importantly, if you are up there in age and you need some help, you don't need help. You don't want help, probably, but that's tough. We want to give you help. So if you're up there in age and you're thinking about going out into the world, don't. Give me a call. Give a fellow agent a call. We can go pick up that grocery run for you, or grab the medicine, or get you a bottle of wine or a 6-pack of beer, whatever it is you need. we can get it for you. So, couple weeks, enjoy Netflix binging and eat all the ice cream you want, but stay safe. All right, that's it for tonight, guys. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you watching. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.